So what do we do when human beings are fully telepathic and empathic? Imagine that it's our actual design to read each other's minds and each other's feelings, which of course makes total sense in the fact that we are all actually one. So of course we can share thoughts and share feelings. It's funny, the telepathy piece I first read about in a book called Mutant Message Down Under by Marla Morgan. And it was really interesting. It was the story of a woman who was a journalist, a New York journalist. And she went down to Australia to do a story on the Aboriginals. And she just wanted to get an easy story, get back to New York and, get on with her important life. And instead, she ended up going on a 6-month walkabout out into the desert. And one of the things she noticed was they would walk along, and it's a great book. I've read it. I read it many, many times a long time ago. And they would all be walking along. And then suddenly, everyone would just change direction. And she said to her guide one day, she said, "How do you guys know?" And he said, "Well, humans are telepathic. We naturally can read each other's minds." And she said, "Well, I can't. I've never experienced it." And they said, "That's why you're mutants. That's why we call you guys mutants," right? They basically called all human beings who were disconnected from their true humanity mutants. And this is why the book was called Mutant's Message from Down Under. It was She's the Mutant. And they said the problem is in your society, there's so much judgment. Judgment is almost foundational to how you interact with each other. You can't allow someone to read your mind because you're afraid of what they're going to think. And you can't read someone else's mind because you can't handle what they're thinking either. And this is really interesting to me because when you have a friend that you actually do trust, that you have this beautiful agape philia with, and you genuinely know that they won't judge you, something interesting happens between your minds. You start to learn more about them than what they're saying. I remember I would sit around with my close friends or my sisters, and we would be talking, and my husband would be listening, and because he loved listening to women talk, he found it fascinating. And afterwards, he would say to me, "I didn't understand what you guys were talking about. You guys were literally talking about 10 different things, and you would just change topics so quickly. Like, I couldn't follow you." And that was one of the first times I realized that it was almost like in a really familiar conversation, more information is coming through than what's coming through verbally. And you would just say like 5 words, they would say 2 words, and you go, "Oh yeah," and then you get on to the next topic. And it wasn't just familiarity. The whole package got downloaded, and it was only because someone was watching that I even knew it was happening. Right? So, and this is something that happens as we become more tantric. I'll tell you that right now. Because as we start losing judgment, it's like the more non-judgmental we become, the more information comes your way from other people. But it's so cool because you don't care, right? It's almost like in a judgmental society, you want to read people's minds so that you can manipulate them or be powerful over them or something, or judge them. But when you don't care, you just it doesn't matter because you know that you have a shadow side, you have this, you have that. It doesn't matter to me what's going on inside of your mind. And if I know, whether you tell it to me telepathically or you tell me verbally, it doesn't change whether I love you or I respect you as a human or anything, because we've all got that. It's not interesting. It's kind of one of those annoying paradoxes that as soon as you don't want to have money or you don't care about money, suddenly you have money, or You suddenly don't try to get pregnant, you suddenly get pregnant. It's kind of like that. When we truly drop judgment, we suddenly know everything there is to know about people. And, I often found that when I would do counseling with people. If there was a point in the relationship where they suddenly trusted me, for some reason, I would know things. And I wouldn't know things like suddenly I got an essay downloaded about their life, but I would know how to help because I would suddenly have insight into what was really going on. And it's not even like that registers. I would just suddenly start talking about something, and it would be what they needed. It's not interesting. I think it's actually how humans are meant to be together, help each other. It's very, very, very natural. It's just interesting in a world full of judgment where we have lost that gift, where we've become mutants. Then there's the question of empathy. The fact that we feel each other's emotions. So in a lot of places where we use this, when we learn things like Reiki or we learn energetic healing, one of the first things we're taught, and sometimes this is important, is that you have to protect yourself from the energies of other people. You have to create a bubble around you. Don't let that energy affect you. And there may be a point in the journey where this is important. Maybe you're hurting and you're in a wounded state, and it's all you can do to sort out your own stuff. Maybe creating a protective bubble it is important to have a protective bubble during that time so you can heal. But once you're not in a traumatized state, once you're not in a healing state, the goal is more to become like a flow-through tea bag. That all emotions pass through you. You can experience them, you can let them go. It doesn't matter. This is the goal because this allows us to stay connected, completely connected. The key is that nothing sticks. Because the only reason something would stick is if it's in your belief system that you're meant to heal them in some way, that you're meant to carry their burden, that you're meant to fix them. Then if you hear or you feel pain in them, you will internalize it because you think you need to fix it. Or it's amplifying a feeling inside of you already. It's not theirs. They're just adding to your own, maybe so that you'll heal that. Right? But the key is to not shut it down. The key is to be aware of it and go, wow, why am I feeling that? Is it mine? And this is all you have to do is ask, is it mine? Yes. Huh. Whether it's being amplified by someone else, that's interesting, but it's still yours. But if it's not yours, then you can let it go. And this is very important, and this is going to be part of our exercise this week. Because feeling the emotions, feeling the sadness of others, it's a really important thing because it's one of those things that really does make us kind of shut off from people because we don't want to feel their sadness. I remember after I was sick, after the story from What If You Could Skip the Cancer, if you haven't read it, when I had breast lumps like 20 years ago, and Jim, my first teacher, appeared into my life. Well, his name is Jim, I don't know why I do him in air quotes, and I had this miraculous healing and it changed my life. And I really wanted to help people. I wanted to do what Jim did. So I called him one day after it was all over and I said, Jim, I want you to teach me what you do. And pardon my language, but he said, Katrina, why the fuck would you want to do that? I thought, what? Isn't this the most incredible thing anyone could ever want to do? Right? Like, what? And he says, I need you to really go and think about why you would ever want to do that. Well, as Jim would do to me often, he would just send me into a state of total confusion. And I really thought about it and prayed about it and meditated on it. And finally, I realized that I was unhappy, I was uncomfortable with the unhappiness of other people. I wanted them to be happy. Why was I so uncomfortable with their unhappiness? Right? This is the strange thing, that we believe that we're never supposed to be unhappy, or we're never supposed to be in pain, or we're never supposed to be in grief. This is life. Sometimes we go through difficult times. We're all allowed to have difficult times. These are the times of incredible growth. These are the times when we can change, when we can learn, when we can grow. So it was I never did learn from him, because I realized I didn't want to do that. And I had to learn how to be uncomfortable with I had to learn how to be comfortable with people's discomfort and their sadness and their unhappiness, and just sit with them and just love them and have faith that they are connected to the same God, to the same infinite potential, the same infinite wealth of possibilities that I am. The best thing I can do is just be with them and love them and have faith in them, and they will find the solutions themselves. Right? It's just like offering these courses. I offer the courses because I think there's really interesting ways to look at the world, and people are drawn to take them. But the point of the courses is your journey. It's your wealth of knowledge. It's you connecting with that divine wisdom. It's not for me, I do the courses because sometimes it helps me articulate what I need to do in my life. I may know it, but sometimes I find out that I need to know it more. I need to deepen it. And through sharing with you, it helps me deepen the knowledge. It's really that we're all in this together. So being both telepathic and empathic, and knowing that it is completely natural, really all we have to do is shift out of judgment. Judgment that someone else's feelings are not okay. Judging that someone else's thoughts or belief systems aren't okay. And then we truly get to be at peace and be that flow-through tea bag of thoughts and emotions and everything. We can respond when needed. We can answer questions. We can share our truth if asked. But we get to stay in peace, in serenity, and still be fully connected to everyone around us.